Alright, so now on to the cell. In this chapter, we're going to learn about the different organelles, but also how stuff gets into the cells or out of the cells. So
Okay,
that's
so
how
this
this picture is just showing how cells can have these different shapes. They're not all round. So here we're seeing the nervous cell or the neuron has this weird star-shaped cells, smooth muscle cells, long. So we're going to see these different cell types. Okay, so there's no typical cell, but all cells have these main parts here. There are some exceptions. Red blood cells have no nucleus, but nucleus is the inside part. And so don't confuse this with the nucleus of the atom. This nucleus of a cell is made up of many, many atoms, many molecules. Cytoplasm just refers to the inside of the cell. The inside of the cell, and it actually writes it down at the bottom, but cytoplasm just means the organelles plus cytosol, which is the liquid inside the cell. And then the cell membrane is just the covering. Okay, so we're going to go over this picture in lab. Here are the main parts. Plasma membrane is the covering. Nucleus is the main part, or the center part. The covering of the nucleus is the nuclear envelope, or you can say nuclear membrane. Chromatin is where the DNA and RNA is sitting. So that's that inside part of the nucleus. But the very center part is called the nucleolus. The next, that blue part there, smooth ER, and you can just write down smooth ER on the test. I will accept that instead of writing smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Rough endoplasmic reticulum, or the rough ER, you can also write down for this. Rough ER has these red dots on it. Those red dots are called ribosomes. Okay, so ribosomes are on the rough ER, but not on the smooth ER. Golgi apparatus is that green part. The Golgi apparatus is going to modify the products made by both the rough and the smooth ER, and then puts them inside these bubbles called the vesicles, so that then the products can go wherever they need to, either to the outside of the cell or inside the cell to do something. Mitochondria are the orange kidney bean shapes, so those are making ATP for the cell, or energy. Cytosol is just the liquid. Lysosome is going to break apart molecules, and it can also break apart bacteria if this is a white blood cell. Peroxisome. Now lysosomes and peroxisomes look very similar, but they have different functions. So if I ask these to you on a picture, lysosome versus peroxisome, I will give you the function and you will tell me. So if I said, what is this organelle that detoxifies harmful substances? That's a peroxisome. But if I said, what is the one that breaks apart molecules? You say lysosome. Centrioles are these yellow rods. We're going to see that these are important for cell division. And that is it on the picture, I believe. Okay, so let's start with the cell membrane or the plasma membrane, just the same thing, that's the covering of the cell. Cell membrane, know that it's made up of many, many phospholipids. So that's the major components. And again, if you remember phospholipids, the phosphate side is okay with water, hydrophilic, but it has those two fatty acids, those are still hydrophobic. Okay, but so phospholipids are the major component. Know that there's also cholesterol in the cell membrane, there are proteins, and there are carbohydrates. And so here we're seeing a picture of the plasma membrane or the cell membrane. And we're seeing here in this close-up view, a lot of phospholipids have come together to make up the cell membrane. But we're also seeing these purple blobs. Those are the proteins, and the carbohydrates are sticking out on the outside. And the cholesterol molecules are located inside the cell membrane. We're going to talk a lot of those proteins that are inside our cell membranes. A lot of those proteins act as channels so that things can go into the cell or out of the cell. And ions are the atoms that have lost electrons or gained electrons. So sodium, after it has lost that electron, is called an ion. So sodium is important for our cells, potassium is important for our cells, chlorine. So if these channels don't work properly, it can lead to these conditions. You do not need to memorize this slide, but this is just examples of what can go wrong if these channels don't work properly. Okay, cytoplasm. We said the cytoplasm is the cytosol, which was liquid, plus the organelles. Okay, so now we're going to look at the different organelles inside, and then also the cytoskeleton making up the cell. Okay, so for these organelles, we need to know the functions. Know that ribosomes make proteins. And we're going to get into this in more detail in the next chapter. The endoplasmic reticulum, rough versus the smooth. Know that rough ER helps the ribosomes in making proteins. And then the smooth ER has no ribosomes. Smooth ER instead makes lipids, or the fats. Vesicles are these kind of like bubbles that products can get stored inside of. And so you're seeing here budding off the Golgi apparatus is a vesicle carrying a product that was modified by it. And again, Golgi apparatus, know that this one modifies products made by both the rough and the smooth ER. So it can add different molecules to it, like sugar groups or phosphates, change them a little bit, depending on what needs to be done. Mitochondria, so those orange kidney bean shapes, these know that they make ATP. ATP is the energy that gives the energy for the cell. Lysosomes versus peroxisomes. So again, lysosomes know that these break down molecules, bacteria, debris. Peroxisomes instead detoxify. Centrosomes. Centrosome is basically referring to the region with the centrioles. And for the centrioles and the centrosome together, centrioles know that these are for cell division. Cilia are these extensions on the surface of a cell. Cilia know that these are moving substances across the cell surface. So for example, in our respiratory tract, we have these cells that have these cilia, and they're always moving the mucus away from our lungs. Another example is in the uterus, moving the egg cell. Flagella, these are just the longer extensions on cells, and so a good example is the sperm cell. And so it's just this long tail that's helping the sperm cell to move around, swim. Okay, other things that are inside the cell. Now think of these as kind of like the skeleton of the cell. They're giving shape to the cell, but they're also helping with the moving around inside the cell. Know that these are the main types. There are microfilaments, and actually all of these are made up of proteins. Microfilaments are important for cellular movements. Microtubules, these are helping to move organelles inside the cells. They're kind of like moving things around. Think of it as like kind of like railroad tracks. And then intermediate filaments, these help to bind cells to each other. And so these are actually on the outside of the cell. Okay, so know the major main functions of these different cytoskeletal elements. And so each of these create the cytoskeleton. The cell nucleus, so the outer covering was the nuclear envelope, and the nuclear envelope has these little openings inside called the nuclear pores. These allow things to go in and out of the nucleus. Nucleolus, the center of the nucleus. Watch out for the spelling for this. Do not spell it like nucleus because it's nucleolus. The center part, this is for making ribosomes. And then the chromatin. Chromatin is this inside part of the nucleus, but not the nucleolus. This is where the DNA, there's also RNA here, and there are proteins here.